Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me. In my series this year, my new series, the year 2020 Rick Miracle Report, this is number 19. I've been talking about some crazy things this year, plus trying to create new Freemasonry and Satanism book reviews. I'm up to number 276. I'm trying to reach 300. And then I can do a review of all the book reviews. And then, of course, my New World Order videos, my chemtrail sky spraying videos, my live streaming videos, and so much more. But this year, 2020, I started making these year 2020 Rick Miracle reports. I was kind of put out of business making videos. In July 2019, YouTube terminated my channel with no strikes against me. So apparently I'm hitting it on the nose, hitting it on the head, so to speak, on the truth. And apparently the people, the powers that be, want to shut me up as well as other people. It's not just me by a long shot. Even one of my favorites, Brother Nathaniel, a Jewish man who later became a Christian priest, had a channel. They terminated his channel. So if you're Jewish and you convert to Christianity, you can't even tell the truth about the religion and the people you came from. They'll shut your channel down. And of course, worser things have happened to a lot of people. President Kennedy in 1963 was well aware of a lot of the crazy things going on, and the UFO and alien discussion and the New World Order and a lot of stuff like that. Well, he was assassinated. William Cooper was shot in his driveway, and many other people have been arrested. Fritz Springmeier thrown in prison. John Long, who was thrown in prison, and when he was released, apparently he was abducted and disappeared, killed. So many people. I made videos on all these things, and I'll continue doing it, knowing full well that the parties involved are sinister and evil, and it's a scary thing to do, to talk about the truth. So this is year 2020 Rick Miracle Report number 19. And I was reading this magazine I just got in the mail. See the date there. 1991. $3.95. And I came across this one article. A first-hand encounter by Richard Sluter. This man. Encounter. First-hand. So he had an encounter. I'll read what's in this magazine and you decide. He did publish this book. Underground Bases and Tunnels. What is the government trying to hide? Richard Sauter, PhD, talks about underground tunnels. Has all kinds of pictures in this book showing the tunnel device, big old machine that does tunnels. You can see the human being there standing next to one of them. The size of that beast. In his book, and so much more. Descriptions of the tunnels. How many pages? 150-page book. So you probably can go on a used book site and find this. Do you want to know what the heck is going on? 50 pages of photos and illustrations. PhD. So he's got all kinds of reviews here from people. The Sauter, Dr. Sauter, has done some superb research and has revealed something that needs to be addressed by the people at once. When was this book published? 1995. So apparently Richard Sauter, Dr. Richard Sauter, wrote this article for UFO Encounter magazine in 1991, before he wrote the other book on the tunnels. So let me tell you this story. See if you think it's crazy, concerning, insane, what? Richard Sauter has put some deeply introspective thought into the possible motive and means of the beings who came into his mind one morning with their message of urgent concern to men and women of Earth. So apparently he had telepathic communication. Before you start laughing, remember the Bible's full of seers, psychics, prophets, and angels and beings, and so are all the other religions all over the world, even the religious people in Hawaii, the kahunas, that would be the witch doctors in Hawaii, take different kinds of drugs and go into trances and walk on fires and actually imprison spiritual beings and even use them to kill people. I think Max Long wrote several books on that. I've made videos on that, and we'll continue to address those topics. So the idea of spiritual beings and all these channelers today communicating with different beings, it's not far-fetched at all. It's actually a normal part of history for we humans. So why would these beings telepathically communicate with Dr. Sauter, PhD, and years later he writes this book? So apparently the government is building underground tunnels to prepare for something that they want to leave the rest of we people out in the cold, so to speak, out here on the surface of the planet, whatever happens. So what are these aliens or talking to Mr. Sauter about? Their message warns us about some of the most sophisticated, ostensibly important research human science has to offer. So the aliens are warning him about what our scientists are doing. The infinitesimal coils of DNA. I know if you unravel a DNA, apparently you can wrap it around the whole Earth. That's how long a DNA strand is if you unwrap it. So that you can see it as a coil, so it's so microscopically small. It's very long, a long string of code that controls your body. Every cell in your body, your eyes, your ears, your toes, your fingernails, DNA. Would our science be messing with DNA? Apparently so. The coils of DNA, which essentially inform every molecule of our being, could hardly be a clearer blueprint, a delicate map of who we are, a precious container carrying the sacrosanct psychobiological message of Homo sapiens. Would we dare to play with that? Apparently we would. It's what we're learning about aliens. If what we're learning about aliens is true, they have. So apparently there are some aliens in cahoots with our government trying to create some kind of new human beings or alter the existing human beings. And there's some aliens who are trying to warn us about what's going on. So apparently there are aliens from the God world, good aliens, and there are aliens from the depth bowels of the earth or another dimension, evil aliens. And the people who control our world are apparently working with the evil ones. And again, like President John Kennedy saying he was going to expose all of this and then being assassinated, that tells the story. And if you look into President John Kennedy and keywords aliens, UFOs, and the internet search, you'll find that he and his Russian counterpart, the Russian leader back then, they were in agreement to expose to the public everything that was going on. And of course we know what happened to him. It would seem to be the sort of game that only God should play. As in so many other ways, aliens communicating with Earthlings thrust the human chess piece across the universal game board to a goal which amounts to nothing less than metamorphosis. It's like a caterpillar turning into a butterfly. Metamorphosis. All right, so I'm going to start reading the article, see how far I can get in 30 minutes. An experience I had in late 1984 suggests that scientists are mistaken in assuming that non-human intelligent beings might rely on radio or other electronic technologies for communication. It is far more likely that such beings employ a variety of mental means to communicate. After all, wouldn't it be more efficient to transfer thought directly from mind to mind rather than to translate thought into speech or printed material than to transmit it by radio or telephone? So basically he's saying the aliens can communicate, beings can communicate through humans, through appearances like angels or mind control. And even Nikola Tesla said that was the case with him. As an old man, he got up on stage one time and said, "I'm not the genius people think I am. I'm having visions, I hear things and dreams, and there's entities telling me what to do." So why would the alien beings want us to have wireless technologies, artificial intelligences, nuclear weapons and all of that? It seems that they're causing a lot of problems on planet Earth. And then of course you have Christian religion, where Jesus came from the spiritual realm to teach us. Muhammad was communicating with beings and gave the Arabs, the Islamist Muslims, their religion. And then you have Confucius in China, Buddha in India, and Zoroaster in Iran. And all the indigenous peoples all over the world have their witch doctors and shamans who were communicating with beings. And some of the shamans who could paint or draw really well drew pictures like what you see behind me when they take drugs and what they could see in that reality versus the reality of Uriah walking out in the front yard or the backyard with the trees and the grass. Apparently this is the kind of images they see when they see this invisible reality. So apparently in the invisible reality there are nefarious, sinister beings, and in the God world there are beings apparently trying to warn us and have given information that's in the Bible prophesizing all of this. Ezekiel in the Bible, if you read it, is clearly that some beings were in craft, and so much more. Okay, back to this article. To make matters still more complex, what if the message arrives in a coherent form? So apparently, when they do mind control, thought control, it's not so much a language like words I'm speaking right now. They can communicate and you can understand their thoughts, whatever the language may be. He says, my experience was very direct. It was about 6 a.m. on the morning of the 28th, 1984. I was living in a small coastal town in St. Mary's, Georgia. I was awakened some minutes earlier and was relaxing in bed prior to starting the day's activities. As I lounged in bed with my eyes closed, thinking of nothing in particular, I suddenly saw something unusual. Normally, when my eyes are closed, all I see is a featureless, dark void. I don't use drugs, I don't drink alcohol beverages of any kind, and I'm not ordinarily given to waking visions. So imagine my quiet surprise when two rather alien looking beings suddenly appeared with vivid clarity in my inner vision screen. You ever had a dream where you could actually see the images? The image was very clear and distinct. The effect was very much as if my inner eyelids had been tuned into television or a movie screen, turned into a television. A thought entered my mind. At the same time, the two beings appeared. It was in the form of the following question: do you want to talk? So he sees these two beings, and he hears in his mind, do you want to talk? He's a PhD, Dr. Richard Sluder, writing this in 1991, having this experience in 1984, writing this book in 95. You think he's sane or insane? No words were exchanged yet. The thought was very precise and unambiguous. My response, also mental, was equally unambiguous. Yes, what would you like to talk about? So what if that happened to you? Would you freak out, or would you talk to what you saw? The two beings had a message of concern and warning to deliver on the dangers of genetic engineering. More specifically, they advised me that there were, and presumably still are, genetic engineering experiments being conducted at Harvard University that could be very harmful for the human race. And if you've been paying attention to the news, and if you're anywhere near being intelligent, you are aware of cloning and all kinds of other genetic manipulations and pesticides, herbicides, GMO foods, and so much more. Even people now able to talk to their doctor and get a designer baby, the color of the eyes, etc. And all the propaganda and hormones fed to the public to make us transgender beings, men into women, women into men, and apparently pansexualism. Evil forces are working to destroy the reality we know. Their message to me was that these experiments tamper with the genetic structure of the organism and are extremely dangerous and should be halted completely. It's starting to rain, so I'll pause for a minute, see if the rain's interfering with my sound. Hello, I'm back. Rain subsided a little bit. I want to interject what I was reading, because I'm reading another book right now. The People of the Secret. Ernest Scott. You know, you hear about people communicating telepathy with some beings. And I'll go back to the UFO magazine and tell you what Dr. Sluder was told by the aliens. But let me read from page 60 in this book something that kind of coincides. So apparently in 1940, Illuminism initiates into magic. They had schools all over Europe and Spain and Ireland, etc. But listen to what this one man said. He fled to Spain. He stole a codex. That's a book on magic. Conscience of the whole art. So he stole the book on magic, on how to communicate with other beings, from under his master's pillow, with help apparently from the master's daughter. Fled and was pursued. Just taking you back to 1940. Over 1,000 years ago. Famous book. People of the Secret. Ernest Scott. I'm reading it. I'm up to page 61. I read this 2 paragraphs and I was blown away. And it might help with this UFO magazine article to give us some confidence on what we're learning. The direction of his flight, according to William, was betrayed by the stars. So if he stole his master's magic book, the Codex, then I suppose his master could use magic, the stars, to locate where the thief was running. So he hung himself under a bridge between earth, air, and water. So he suspended, he didn't kill himself, he suspended himself under a bridge, so he would be hung in the air between the earth, air, and water, so that his master could not use the stars to find him. Gerbert, this guy who stole the Codex, then invoked the devil and was assisted by him across the Bay of Biscay. He returned to France and became scholastic of Reims, a teacher, professor, where Otto, the future empire of Germany, Robert Capert, soon to be king of France, and Filbert, the future bishop of Chartres, were his pupils. So in 1960, these things happened, according to this book. They had schools for magic. They called it a codex, the book. And these people who were studying the magic became experts at it, were teaching the future leaders of Europe. Oh my. And apparently they could invoke beings like the devil and use this magic and communicate with other beings. People don't want to believe this. I might be making a Freemasonry and Satanism video on this book for sure. But let me finish reading this article here about Mr. Sluter, PhD, who also wrote this book, Underground Tunnels All Over America. Notice how all this is coming together. And in this article he's writing about the Harvard University and the leaders of our world involved in genetic manipulation, engineering, creating some kind of otherworldly beings here on Earth. And I have a conclusion here I'll add at the end of this video. So he says here he doesn't hang around the Ivy League. He doesn't have an expertise in biological or medical science. So he's saying, why give me such a message? I can think of at least two reasons. Assuming that the beings were actual emissaries of an alien race, and that the message they conveyed to me was a true one, then it is very likely that Harvard researchers causing the problem would probably be very close-minded and unlikely to entertain any objections to their work, especially from alien beings whose reality they would probably scoff at with sophisticated Ivy League skepticism. But I would be willing to listen, and that is probably why they contacted him. From what I know, our sophisticated leaders in all these secret societies, Illuminati, Rosicrucian, Freemasons, etc., they know how to communicate with these otherworldly beings. Effective communications has at least two essential components: transmission of a message and its reception. Therefore, in order to deliver their message, these two beings needed someone who would listen to them. No doubt the aliens would very much have liked to deliver the message to the scientists themselves, but if minds in the scientific community are closed, then there is little alternative but to approach outside of the scientific community. I may not have been their perfect target, but I may have been the closest they were able to get. Incredible information. Back in 1991, you can go online and find these UFO magazines at used book sites like abooks.com. $8, $9, $10. That's where I get them. Just got this magazine and this one here in the mail yesterday. 1989 on that one. So I read some of these articles and I just make these half-hour videos to try to just have a conversation so that we regular people out there can know what's in these magazines. And from my research, making videos since 2011, over 1,000 hours, and YouTube canceling my channel with no strikes against me, reading hundreds and hundreds of books and magazines and press releases, thousands of press releases and pages, all in boxes that would stack up over 10 feet. I'm telling you, this is plausible, possible truth. So the second reason he might have been contacted has to do with the date of December 28th. Here we go with the Bible and King Solomon's temple. So what happened on December 28th? And the activities I participated in later in that morning. Well, apparently throughout the Christian world, and I'm a Christian and I didn't know this, just goes to show you, December 28 has for centuries been the day of commemoration of the slaughter of innocent holies. Christian services on that day are dedicated to the memory of the many infant boys massacred on the order of King Herod. That would be the king of Judea, now called Israel, who wanted desperately to destroy the baby. So apparently when the three kings came into Bethlehem, when Jesus was born, part of the duty of a king coming into another kingdom is to visit the existing kingdom. So the three kings that went to Jesus' birth following a star visited King Herod. And of course King Herod had said, "What brings you to my kingdom?" And they said, "Well, the Messiah is born. A new king is born. Jesus, Christmas, you know." And so King Herod ordered all the young infant boys to be slaughtered so he could make sure that this king did not arrive. Not knowing which child Jesus was, his troops killed all the little boys in Bethlehem and the surrounding region, calculating that Jesus was sure to be among the victims. He was not. Oh my, you see how all this stuff fits together? The Bible, the people of the secret, all these books I go over, the government, genetically engineering, messing with our DNA, GMOs, pesticides, herbicides, cameras everywhere, artificial intelligence, 5G, transmissions. The radio waves are the size of the molecules and water molecules in your body, my body. And artificial intelligence and those molecule-sized radio waves and artificial intelligence and those molecules the size of water molecules or blood cells. I said it twice for a reason. And the dumping of heavy metals in the sky, chemtrails, etc., sky spraying, heavy metals in our bodies, electromagnetic waves, artificial intelligence, computer programming. All that amounts to is they can remotely, possibly, genetically engineer us. And the aliens were trying to warn Mr. Sluter back in 1984. He wrote this article in 1991 for UFO magazine, and in 1994 he wrote this book, Underground Bases and Facilities Involving UFOs and Aliens. I'm reading this book right now, the series 277 in my Freemasonry and Satanism series. All this is coming together, amazingly enough. So the troops of King Herod of Judea, now called Israel, 2,000 years ago, wanted to make sure Jesus didn't survive. And his name isn't really Jesus. Apparently it's Isu. And the S is like park or parks. You know, you add S to words. So when they put the G, which they invented the G 500 years ago, that's the last letter added to the alphabet. That's how you get Jesus. So I suppose if they didn't have the S, it would be Jisu. So they added the S for Jesus, and the real name of Jesus was Isu. Stuff I learned, I made a video on that. Oh my, this stuff comes together. So continue on here for a few more minutes for this video. So Jesus was not killed, according to this article, but many other young boys were. So the day lives in infamy as a kind of metaphor for man's inhumanity to man. So apparently in the 1980s there were people protesting on St. Mary's town right on the coast next to Jacksonville, Florida. I've been through there. There's King's Navy base that has so many nuclear submarines there. I'm shortening this article. So the people were going to protest all those nuclear missiles right off the coast of Jacksonville, Florida, a big city the size of New York City almost. And right north of there across the river is St. Mary's and Kings Bay. I was going to relocate there in its kind of country area, but I thought I don't want to be right next to nuclear missiles. So he was supposed to go be part of the protest when he had this communication with these aliens, warning about the genetic engineering by our government. A whole article here. I can't read it all in 30-minute videos. And I noticed that people don't watch my 1 hour, 2 hour. They say they're too long. So I have to just summarize this stuff. So apparently back then in 1984, the aliens were warning that these people were messing with our DNA, and apparently they've been continuing ever since. They now have computerized high-frequency microwave-sized wavelengths and artificial intelligence and cameras, and this is 2020. They're moving closer to this global world order and apparently dumping the heavy metals in the sky. In my knowledge, I do have a degree in electronics. I would surmise that they have figured out how to program our bodies with the radio waves, digital information, cell phones, probably tuning into our frequency and syncing up with us, just like you use your phone to sync up with your iPhone and songs and other things. They can sync up to us. They have artificial intelligence, short little microwaves, and all this research since 1980s, over 40, 50 years. I suspect something seriously horrendous is possible. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle reporting.